Hello, Ranting Dragon here with another video. This time, this one is in English. And in case you wonder why, well, it's because from now on I'm releasing videos in English on occasion, not constantly. It won't be as consistent as with my other videos that are weekly on Sundays. Why Sundays? Because that's where I have space. On Tuesdays, I make videos. Well, for Tuesdays, I make reviews, pop culture videos in general. Wednesdays, it's no Wednesday. Thursdays is the say random blog, which I release videos that make no sense, basically. No, I rant about anything. And on Saturdays, I release a controversial or political videos, a social commentary, that kind of shit. So I decided to start this small blog in English because fuck everyone, and I don't care about cultural appropriation. I'm not fucking scared if my accent sounds weird. If I sound weird, I'm fucking stressed. I am not a native English speaker. So don't be surprised if I sound weird, if I mispronounce something. It's because I found that word reading instead of listening it. And, well, that's like the introduction to this new blog, which I am starting today. And the next phase is a disclaimer. I don't hate Mexico. I'm a fucking patriot, to be honest. I love my country. And that's why I complain about fucking things that affect my country. Uh, And that's why I complain about Mexican people being shit. Because I love my country. And I hate it when people in my own country harm it. I don't hate the United States. I admire the traditions of the old United States, of the pre-20th century United States. I strongly admire their founding fathers. They influenced the founding fathers of my country, so I admire them. Uh, Abraham Lincoln, in particular, is someone I strongly admire. I mean, when we here in Mexico watch TV shows about American history, we hear about Mr. Lincoln, and he was an amazing man from my perspective, despite the flaws of his time. He was an amazing man. He was an impressive figure. I admire him. But I also think America is the capital of the world. I firmly believe America is extremely divided between the America I admire, the America previous to World War II, previous to the 20th century, and the America, the postmodern America, which I find extremely disgusting and which has taken a hold of most popular culture. So if I speak negatively of America, remember, if you are not the kind of thing I am speaking negatively about, you are not that America. You are the other America. If you are more educated or more traditional and understand my worldview, you are the America I admire, not the America I hate. They are two different things. They are two different factors. And you could literally divide them geographically between East Coast or the coastal regions and Central. Seriously. And with that, we open this video. That's the kicker for this video, so to speak. Because I'm going to complain about something weird and fucked up that I noticed in regarding American culture, to be honest. It is not precisely American culture, just for the record. It's American media influenced culture. That is, it is not something that happens in America by its own, but rather something that manifests in anywhere because of American culture, pop culture. For a little bit of background, my parents are fucking boomers. My father literally is nearing his 60s, 70s. I don't remember. I don't really like him. He's like basically Mexican Bernie Sanders. So he's a fucking boomer. A left-wing boomer. I don't get along with him because he's far left, not center left, no, far left. But I ask him quite often about how things were back when he was young, when he was in his teenage years, in his 20s. And I also asked my mother about it. I repeat, my parents are fucking boomers. So, or the Mexican equivalent of boomers, because there is a general, before the advent of the internet, before we had this global trade society, Mexico was delayed about between 5 to 20 years from America in many ways. Culturally, economically, technologically, there was this variation in many things between 5 to 20 years. Some things arrived at 5 years later, others arrived 15 years later, others 20 years later. Literally, feminism arrived in Mexico during the 80s. Unfortunately, it arrived. And 70s, 80s, something like that. And my father's boomers, they tell me about how things were when they were young, long before I was born. And things are very different. And they mentioned that when they started watching films, American films, pop culture films, in particular these like teenage drama garbage, these things were fucking weird, and they believed America was fucking crazy. I keep telling them it is not exactly like that in real life. That the whole pushing people into lockers started in media and then became real. I explained them that back then things were better because I have been told so by people from America, and that's when I noticed society, in particular Western society, is being shaped by a fucking bunch of idiots in California. To be more precise, Hollywood. What I mean by this is that most of what people think Americans are, and one of the reasons why most people out of America hate America, is because is coming from a Hollywood-based popular media. That is, people here hate America, for example, for their culture, hookup culture, binge drinking, high crime, and it's because they see it on TV. It's not real. Not in all America. People firmly believe bullying in America is really strong, and guys are thrown into lockers, and guys are have their heads pushed in the toilet on a regular basis. Not that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying it's not as common as television and films make it seem, but it worsens over time as people start to sadly imitate that behavior. And the reason my parents mentioned those things didn't exist is exactly because they have started to manifest since the 90s here in Mexico. You are fucking my country, basically. No, no joke. Back during the 70s, 80s, according to what they say, there was not as much bullying in schools. There was hostility between classmates, but there wasn't this organized bullying. There wasn't this anti-intellectual position of bullying the nerd. It wasn't there until that started, according to my mother, that started in the 90s. But before that, being intelligent was seen as irrelevant, as normal, inconsequential, more than as something to admire or to hate. There was no hatred toward intellectuals. There were there was pretty much no homosexual presence in public. I mean, if you were homosexual, it was something private. There was discrimination against homosexual people, unfortunately, but there was also not the other extremes, pride parades and things like that, that started a few decades ago, and things are worse because of that, because even homosexuals hate it. My homosexual friends speak of that. I once, I was with a group of them once, and they invited another guy. He said, "Are you going to the LGBT pride parade with me today?" And there was this girl who is bisexual and his brother who is gay. And they were like, "Fuck you, man!" No joke. They looked at him and they were like, "No way, the fuck we are going there. It's disgusting, man. It's tasteless." That was their position, and I strongly agree with it. The thing is, there was no such thing, and in fact, the how to say gay rights movement here started without that kind of shit. And for the most part, uh, we didn't have binge drinking or clubbing. We had nightclubs. People went there to dance. They didn't even drink alcohol in them most of the time. And in fact, there was a higher chance of seeing someone smoking weed in a nightclub in Mexico than drinking alcohol. And the style of nightclubs in Mexico before the 90s, before the early 2000s, even even during the 90s, the main style was this fucking the style of the disco fever era. You know, this this mirrored ball, disco ball thing, guys with leisure suits, mm, no table to sit at, literally little to no drinks, a little bit of weed sometimes, but ironically, not much alcohol. In fact, my mother went clubbing and she never drank a single drop of alcohol there. That's what she said. When I asked her, how the fuck was clubbing so different in your time? And she was like, because we went there to dance. We didn't even went there to hook up. We went there to dance. We went with a group of friends and we tried, basically, she said, we tried to occupy the dance floor for as long as we could. But entered the 90s, early 2000s actually, and things started to change. It was no longer weed, now it was fucking ecstasy and cocaine and fucking stronger things that were not sold back then so easily. There's alcohol now, there's date rape drugs, there's hookups in nightclubs. Before the 90s, there wasn't. If you went to a nightclub, you didn't go to get a girl or a guy. You went to dance. That used to be until the late 90s. And my parents, my parents told me, this is this is so weird because it wasn't there before Hollywood came in. Because Mexico didn't have Hollywood films until the late 80s. All the films prior to the 80s arrived untranslated most of the time, or arrived later. As I said, a 5 to 20 year delay. Star Wars was one of the few that arrived quite fast. Disney films, most of those films that were basically 90s landmarks to America, I mean 80s landmarks to America, all those films that were like the 80s classics, were considered classics here during the 90s because they arrived about 5 to 10 years later. And there weren't that many movie theaters, and movie theaters here displayed local films. There was a strong national film culture until the 60s and then died. And in terms of, for example, cartoons, we didn't have American cartoons until the late 80s. All the cartoons we got prior to that were anime, no joke. Well, not all, but most. And there was also local production. We had, for example, this one called the Cantinflas Show, which was one of the most popular Mexican cartoons in the 70s and 80s. We had from America. We didn't get much. Disney had no was Mickey Mouse was less recognized than Astro Boy here. No joke. In fact, my mother watched a lot of anime when she was a child. Because of that, she watched Astro Boy, Candy Candy, that kind of stuff. Because that's what was shown on TV back then. And in fact, uh, children and young adults, but teenagers, didn't watch that much TV. They spent a lot more time doing physical activities or helping their parents with their work or doing homework or anything but watching TV. Seriously, watching TV more than a whole hour was rare back then, according to my parents. To mention films. And then Hollywood arrived, and arrived strong. By the time I was aware of my own existence, it was already there. Really, really strong. Hollywood was everything. And most of the films were modern, basically. I mean, people in Mexico knew all those black and white old films. For them, Marilyn Monroe was novelty by the time she was already dead. But something else, something evil. All that, all those teenage dramas shaped the culture. All those drunken films shaped the culture because there wasn't binge drinking here. There was alcohol, but not this binge drinking thing. I mean, it was like you're drinking constantly. In Mexico, the alcohol issue was mostly about among males past their 40s, middle-aged men who spent the most of their time drinking because they had nothing to do, unemployed, or injured, or depressed, or somehow people who had nothing to do, and they spent their time drinking. And it wasn't like they drank until they passed out. It was like they drank all fucking day. That was the problem. If you have someone drinking a beer every hour or every 2 hours, he will be an alcoholic. But that's the difference. There wasn't this habit of drinking a total of 16 beer cans in a single night. There wasn't binge drinking before it arrived in American media. People here don't even know how the justice system in Mexico works because they believe it works like in America. Most of the time, the reason people go to jail here is because they wait for the trial, expecting to go. And I know it's even unrealistic in America. It's a TV thing, expecting to go in front of the judge and a jury and the prosecutor and with their lawyer and basically yelling and sobbing and gaining the hearts of the public because that's what they see on TV. Objection, Your Honor! That's the kind of shit they see. But it's not real. I know it's not real because I have seen recordings of trials. And if you do that, it will only affect you. Most of the time, people on trial in America, I know, are sitting handcuffed and quite nervous and speaking in the lowest possible tone. I mean, I did see the trial of Ted Bundy, and you don't see anyone pushing or everything. In fact, Ted Bundy was the most relaxed person there because he was a fucking psycho. That's the difference. It's not like on TV, I know. People think it is. Even my father thinks it is. My mother doesn't because she listens to my explanations. I explain that. But he, who is, as I said, only a few steps to the right of Bernie Sanders, the boomer, he believes it has gotten that far. He really believes America has reached peak clown world even though a clown world always bests itself. And he really believes trials there are that weird, intense, and dramatic. The worst part is that most people here really believe they have a chance of a trial with a jury and all that shit. But that's a system which is not found in Mexico. Because in Mexico we use a system based on the Napoleonic Code, a kind of system called inquisitorial, in which you don't get a trial that way. The trial is the trial is the investigation. Basically your lawyer is only there to make sure you know the law and you know whether or not you broke the law, and to make sure he finds one or more legal loopholes within the law to speak to the judge and say, dude, there's a hole in the law where he can escape and I'm making him escape. The problem, when they are searching, the prosecutor is there, when they are investigating your case, the first thing they do is reading the legal codes and make sure you broke the law, or at least that it can be assumed you broke the law. They speak to the victims or to the affected, or investigate the scene if you know there was no one directly hurt. And when you meet face to face with the judge for the first time, it's also the last time. There is no trial. It's only to be given your sentence and maybe to give the chance to the lawyer to suggest a deal or to confirm that you are actually innocent. But basically, it's during the investigation that both judge, jury, there is no jury, both judge, prosecutor, and lawyer try to make sure to confirm whether you are guilty or not. You are either declared guilty or not guilty the moment you meet with the judge. The trial is short. There is basically no trial, only investigation. And by the time they sit you in jail, no joke, and go, you're guilty. You're guilty. Here's the evidence. There is no chance for you to go to the jury. There is no chance for you to object. Your lawyer is only there as an advisor. He offers you a plea deal or things like that at the moment, or he says, no, here's the evidence to prove he's innocent because of this legal loophole, or because he didn't break the law. In fact, they will interview you during the investigation, and that's when you need to act. It's during the investigation when you need to act, when you need to confirm you are not guilty. That's why it is so easy to go to jail in Mexico, because people don't know the fucking laws, because people don't know how their system works. People who do, more often than not, say, but the law here says I'm innocent. I didn't break the law. And that's it. But people who don't know, they are told, you're guilty? Yes, I'm guilty. Because they don't know. They turn themselves in most of the time. And curiously enough, most of the time, people get away with things that are illegal here because nobody knows they are fucking illegal. And on the contrary, they go to jail for illegal things, like teenage girls, because they don't know that they are legal. No joke. No joke. If she's 16, she's legal here, in all the fucking republic. No joke. But there are a few regulations, a few rules, a few, how to say, it's a case by case basis thing in which you need to make sure you are following the law. That's why I read my fucking laws, because I don't want to go to jail for something that is legal, and I don't want to break the law unknowingly. I am. Many believe I am chaotic neutral, but I am fucking lawful good, by the way. The thing is, people here believe and they start to behave. Believe it is real and start to behave like the things they see in Hollywood. We didn't have binge drinking, clubbing wasn't about hookups. There wasn't a hookup culture here. We had courting here until the late 90s. You went and they played music, they call it serenata, which is basically like serenade, it's the most literal translation, but it was basically some guy, someone maybe with no musical skills, who went either on his own or with a band. If he paid a mariachi band, no joke. If he didn't have the money, he paid for a. If he had the money and he didn't have the talent, he paid for a mariachi band and went in front of the girl's house, at her window, and started fucking playing and singing and asking her to go out with him. That was courting in Mexico. There was no hookup culture. Even courting, when there wasn't that kind of thing, was more of, hey, I fucking like you, we are friends, we know each other, let's say it. Cheating was less common among women, among men was less open. It was very common, and it is wrong, but it was less open, and women were not as often cheaters as men. There was less vice in general. There was less vice. Alcoholism was a problem, but there wasn't binge drinking. There wasn't going to the nightclub and waking up with your pants down the next day, not knowing who raped you or whether it was rape or not, because apparently there is a video of you sucking 7 dicks with a fucking smile because you were fucking drunk, you don't remember, and you're okay. There wasn't that kind of shit in Mexico back then. There wasn't that kind of shit in Mexico even in the early 90s. It all arrived with American pop culture, with teenagers trying to imitate what they saw on TV, believing it was cool. No joke. Even when it was depicted as negatively, they believed it was cool because it was mature. And honestly, teenagers who are no longer children, they want to act like adults, and when they are not allowed, and when they don't know what being mature is, they start fucking their lives up. And in fact, bullying and intellectualism, it happened to me because I was born in the period when that kind of shit arrived into the popular culture. Literally, nerd hate was a common thing when I was young, and I was a fucking nerd. And the only reason I wasn't thrown into a locker was because there weren't lockers at the school I went to. Bullying got so ugly, so depraved and violent that about 10 years ago there was this case in which two elementary school students, I think they were still kids. If they are prepubescents, they are kids. If they aren't, if they are teenagers, for example, they aren't kids. They aren't, at least biologically, independent of what your laws say. This is not about laws. This is about science. This is about biology. They are kids. Uh, but they are minors according to the law. Let's let's get the difference first. A minor and child are separate. One is biological, the other is legal. And a minor can be even considered someone under the age of 20, as in Japan. These kids grabbed a classmate and shoved his head into a toilet and flushed it because they saw it on TV. And this kid died. He died. He died because we are speaking of a school toilet in Mexico. It was filthy. Um, uh, he swallowed feces and they entered his lungs. It was in the news. I read it in the news 10 years about 10 years ago. And he had a pulmonary infection and died. And they were imitating something they saw on TV because they thought that's how you treat the loser kid. Because I saw it. And about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there was this case in which two elementary school boys raped a girl. They were like ages 10 to 8. The youngest, the girl, and about the 9, 8, and 10 group of boys raped a girl in a classroom because they were playing rape. Playing rape. No joke. That's why they told to the authorities. And they didn't go to jail because they were children and all that fucking shit. I say, shoot the fuckers in the head. These boys raped a girl claiming they were playing rape because they saw it on TV, because they were playing the narcos. Okay? They were pretending to be drug dealers and gangsters and criminals, and part of the game was raping a girl because they saw it in media. I am not in favor of censorship, to make that clear. I am not in favor of censorship. I am not against the release of GTA. I am not against the release of any of the most degrading and disgusting porn ever, even though I don't like it. But I find it fucked up that media is shaping reality, that media is affecting the way people act, and that Hollywood is the source of most of that negative shit. Because curiously enough, here there is this stereotype of the otaku being a really nice person, a socially awkward but really nice person, and the person who consumes most of that crap being a douchebag, the person who watches American stuff being a douchebag, because that stereotype surfaced in the 90s. Because exactly people my age are either douchebags or otaku. No joke! No fucking joke! That's Mexico, ladies and gentlemen. People here are either douchebags or geeks. There is no other place. There is no in between. Not only otaku, geeks in general, nerds, people who watch comics, who like superhero films, and who really like them, and who really like video games. Not the guy who plays GTA or Halo because that's the trendy thing, who watches Marvel films because that's the trendy things. No, people who are really nerds, the kind of people who is really an investment to those products. They are the stereotype of the good guy. In fact, people who listen to heavy metal are considered more socially friendly than those who listen to gangsta rap or douchebags. And half of Mexico are douchebags, basically, or even more than a half. And there is that stereotype. In fact, we have this thing called chacos and cholos, which are like stereotypes of bad people here. It's the stereotypes, of course. I am speaking of stereotypes. And we have the nerd guy, who's a random guy. Sometimes he's quite fit, but he's a fucking nerd because he grew up watching anime because there was lots of anime on TV during the early 90s and the late 80s. Hollywood is damaging society by creating a social image that is false. That's fucked up. And for some reason, nobody's doing anything about it. And it's affecting America too, and it's affecting other countries too. In fact, this whole teenage drama, toxic shit that happens quite a lot in America was not non-existent here until we had teenage drama shows. You know, the kind of shit about the breakups and cheating and unstable relationships, and all that kind of shit wasn't that common here. And popularity contests weren't. I mean, at the school, you were there to study. Popularity wasn't important to school back then in Mexico. That came with American media. That came when basically teenagers who started watching that kind of shit started to imitate it, and in particular, they imitated the negative side. They basically behave like the plastics of Mean Girls. Even boys behave like that. They are the modern teenagers are very effeminate and very catty and very bitchy. They are bitches. They are bitch boys, not beach boys. Beach boys. That's crap. That's crap, and that's fucked up. But it arrived with America, and I was reading studies where I found a lot of my opinion on teenagers from this guy called Robert Epstein. Yes, the guy who went to that audit in that meeting with the Supreme Court, between the Supreme Court and Google. That guy, Robert Epstein, made a study in which he was researching the different ethnicities out of America, and he found that many places didn't have Teenage angst, teenage drama, teenage depression, the whole teenage behavior wasn't there until American media arrived. You guys caused the shit. You guys brought this plague upon us. Binge drinking, clubbing, teenage pregnancies weren't that common. Teenage pregnancies were either a rural thing or the byproduct of rape in Mexico. No joke. And teenage pregnancies often meant teenage marriages, not single motherhood. Until media arrived. You created a slut culture here. You created binge drinking here with Hollywood. And when I say you, I am not saying all of America. I am saying the people who support that shit. The people who support Hollywood. You fuck my country. Simple as that. And I am angry and that's why I am cursing. In particular, I tend to curse a lot more in English than in Spanish. I struggle with that. And I curse quite a lot in Spanish, but I am angry. That's why I'm cursing that much. If you don't notice I'm angry, it's because I am not easily, how can I say? I am not very expressive when it comes to anger because I am always angry. Partly joking. I have a weird sense of humor, and so I can stay happy and angry at the same time. I can stay excited and angry at the same time. I am always angry. So I I look angry. So I curse a lot. No, but seriously, I'm cursing to vent some anger, and that's why I curse, but I stay calm. I curse, but I can smile and crack jokes and and I don't start yelling like this man about the gay frogs, who I cannot mention because I could get in trouble, and I don't rip my shirt off. It would be cool. I really would like to imitate his style, but I can't because I curse and I vent anger that way. I have two methods of venting anger: cursing and hitting when I am in danger, when my anger is the result of a physical threat. I often end up being violent physically and end up being beaten up. I am not good at measuring my success rate still. I am getting better, and I am not very violent in comparison to criminals, to violent people, to people who are known for being violent. I am just unafraid of fighting. I am not afraid of fighting, but I prefer not to. So I vent my anger cursing, and I am angry because they are inflicting a lot of harm in culture in many places. And in fact, I have heard it from people from other areas that Hollywood culture is detrimental to their people. In fact, that's something I have heard from many people. Even for example, I follow this guy Obita from Japan, and he doesn't have a very high opinion on American culture. He believes it is not very good for Japan. I believe the same regarding Mexico. Fuck that! I mean, seriously, Hollywood culture is extremely toxic, and it's a product of a rapist, basically, a group of circle of rapists who rape girls to get them the job. I want Hollywood gone. I don't want censorship. I don't want, for example, Disney films gone, or even films that I don't like American Pie or shit like that gone. No, I want Hollywood gone. I want the end of the celebrity worship culture. I want the end of Hollywood. I want not a revolution, not destruction. I want a restructuring, a new dawn of American culture, a better American culture. And I know it is there waiting for the end of this toxic culture, which even you guys hate, which even you guys notice is unhealthy. I don't want people in Mexico to start acting like the protagonists of Requiem for a Dream or Trainspotting just because they think that's glamorous. And that's what Hollywood sells you, that the life Trainspotting and Requiem for a Dream is glamorous. They sweeten it, they make it colorful, they make it exciting, instead of what is as shown in Trainspotting. One of the reasons I don't do fucking drugs is because of Trainspotting. It scared me. It scared the fuck out of me. No, I'm kidding. I knew the negative effects of heroin long before watching Trainspotting, but it was scary. And if you watch it, and it was more realistic and a lot scarier than Reaper's Madness. I am quite well informed on the matter, and even though you don't have all these weird trips, the parts about people dying of overdose, the parts about people messing their lives with drugs, are realistic. I have seen it in people around me, and that's why I don't do drugs. Well, America glamorizes it. Snort a line of cocaine, get on the car, get the girl. That's the Hollywood dream, and it's not the American dream. And people act as if it was the American dream, are imitating it in my country. That's scary. It's fucking disturbing. It's scary. I want to be that to be over, and I want to scold you. Why did you do that to my country? Why did you do that to your country? Robert Epstein said it. Teenage dramas are harmful to teenagers. Teenage on teenage interaction is harmful to teenagers. Teenagers being forced to be friends is harmful to teenagers. Treating teenagers like children is harmful to teenagers. That's what his texts indicated. That's what his research indicates. I also had took this maturity test that was on his website, and I'm a fucking man child. I was. I actually ran it once, realized that I am a fucking man child, and I started to improve myself. Ran it again, and now I am an adult. Only because I read where I was lacking as an adult in the results, and I decided I had to improve. I had to become better. I am still failing in the parts of politics because the test is designed for Americans. And I don't know much about American, for example, voting laws. That's where I get most wrong. But now I am better on the part of the economy. I am better on the part. I am an adult completely on the part of independence, of self-reliance, of sex life understanding. Basically, the parts that are international. I fail on the American only part. But I used to be a man child before taking that test and realizing where I was wrong. Still, I was high for a man. I was a high functioning man child. I mean, yeah, I was according to the test, I was heavily infantilized, but I was quite well aware of many facts that were important for an adult to be functional. And once I corrected the flaw that was my lack of independence. For example, I didn't know how to cook, and exactly I went for cooking. I said I am going to start cooking because I got really frustrated because I lacked many material, physical skills that allowed me independence, and I fixed that, and now I am an adult. But teenagers are heavily infantilized, according to the research, and the teenage-based media, teenage-based products, the whole shopping mall thing that wasn't also there. It isn't that bad, so I didn't care much about it. But the whole going with your friends to a shopping mall and wasting money and thinking you're popular, the whole popularity thing wasn't there before Hollywood arrived, and it is harmful. And you are not worried about it. You're not worried about teenagers fucking like rabbits in the school restroom. You are not worried about teenagers snorting cocaine lines and at the mall because you don't pay much attention to what is on TV anymore. Because most of you who would care are not watching TV. And those who are watching TV don't care. And that's scary. That's disturbing. Well, that's it for today. I extended quite a lot more than I expected. Uh, if you like this video, thumbs up. If you want to watch more videos like this one every Sunday, or if you understand the Spanish and would like to watch the videos in Spanish I got, it's every way to subscribe. Ranting Dragon out. Have a great day.